Yo, what is going on, everybody? Cinematic Sports Cards here, and before I start this video, this is actually part 2 of our podcast episode, and to see part 1, you want to go to SportsCardInvest channel, and I will link that in the description below, so watch that if you haven't already. And if you're coming from his channel from part 1, well, let me start part 2 right now. Thanks.
Huh?
Plus 700 the Bucks.
That's-
Yeah.
Okay, yeah,
Plus
but the
700.
Lakers are plus. The Lakers are plus 160.
The Lakers,
know?
they're actually at
Yeah.
plus 275 here. I have
This
that one,
LeBron
plus 275.
ankle.
Yeah, probably because he got injured
So I
today.
guess on that note, what do you
And
guys
the Nets
think?
are plus 275 as well. So the Lakers and the Nets have the same futures line to win it all.
Yeah, we know
Pretty-
that. That's the case for like a few weeks. I mean, we've seen that, and I think that's probably pretty accurate. I believe that's pretty much the sentiment of the country right now. I think people are split.
Yeah.
In the card world, people are more on the Nets because the Nets have a multiple upside if they win. You know, if the Nets win, Harden's prices, Kyrie's prices to some extent, and of course Durant's prices will probably, benefit a lot on the way into winning that title. You know, if they look like the front runner. Whereas LeBron's prices are already kind of high.
There we go. Yeah, the
Yeah,
only
I don't
team
think he
favored,
would
the
give
only
the
team
player.
favored more to win it all is the Houston Rockets.
Houston
I'm
Rockets.
kidding. I'm kidding.
I know, but
Chase is from
mean,
Houston.
but in general-
I had to throw that in there.
Yeah, the problem with the Rockets is I think their ownership is more interested in putting on a show than putting up a banner. And there's a big difference between that. There's a lot of, Houston owners have always been like that. We've always had an owner cultureship in Houston that's been more interested with selling a story than actually hanging a banner.
Yeah.
So, I think
I
that.
guess on that note.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, no,
You
this
want to talk
playoff.
about LeBron?
I mean, a little bit, but I think in general, the playoffs, right? It's every single time you see a big short-term opportunity in my eyes for the playoffs, of course. Before the playoffs is usually, like we saw this in the NBA bubble, right? Leading up to the bubble, everyone was stacking up on all these playoff players. Volatile, prices are super volatile during the playoffs. One guy has a big performance. When players get knocked out, prices go down hard. When players have crazy performances, prices go up very fast. So I guess in the term, for those watching who are, short-term flippers who do want to find that next opportunity and hop on it, make some good money, right? It definitely, in my eyes, right, it's expectations, right? So the Lakers and Nets both have such high expectations that if they lose, prices are, gonna fall, right? Yet these players and teams who, for example, the Suns, even though they're the third seed, I personally believe they're going to go far into the playoffs. Their expectations are very low, right? Considering the prices of, Booker, considering the prices of Chris Paul, their expectations are very low. They're low population cards, right? So if they exceed expectations, you're going to see some big price increases. That's why, for example, I just picked up this Booker RPA, and that's typically because, firstly, it's a fraction the price of Zion, even though his base prism's double the price of Zion, and that's possibly because Booker's high-end market isn't quite there yet. There's not many big high-end investors and collectors looking at Booker right now, but also you do have this whole expectations thing, and the Suns have not proven any playoff success as of yet. But as soon as they do, I see a lot of short-term opportunity in these cards. I'm not saying, everything's going to play out. Right?
No, I totally agree. I mean, I think that out of all the new guys, Booker seems to be the one that honestly seems to have the most explosive talent and probably the most undervalued given where his talent level is, in terms of his pricing. And I thought last year Djokovic was the guy too with the most talent.
Wait, Chase, are you buying in on the Suns, dude? Thumbs up if you're buying in on the Suns, because I don't know. I don't know about that.
Yeah, I like the Suns. I like the Suns. I mean, I don't know.
Okay.
And they did well in the bubble too.
Yeah. They got low expectations. They play with great chemistry. They move the ball well.
Yeah.
But Booker can. I mean, he scored 71 points in a game. I mean, the guy is capable. He's anybody that can put up 71 points in an NBA game. That's scary.
I mean, we'll see when the pressure's on.
Well,
let's see what
Booker
happens.
showed up in this bubble. The Suns went 8-0.
Yeah.
I mean, Booker showed up. He's the youngest player with
I like the Suns. I like the way they play.
The record of clutch shots for as young as he is. he's extremely clutch, and that's why I think he shines when the light is on him. And for the first time, the Suns are a playoff team, right? This will be Booker's first appearance in the playoffs. So it's just going to be, this is where the playoffs is where a star can turn into a superstar. No one who hasn't had playoff success is going to get any real attention. At that point, it's called empty numbers, right? Anyone nowadays can put up those Bradley Beal, Trae Young, all these guys are putting up incredible numbers. But what separates them from, LeBron doesn't put up those numbers, right? But what separates them is, playoff success and being able to win. And the Suns for the first time are going to have the opportunity, or Booker for the first time is going to have the opportunity to, show that he can win games. And same with Donovan Mitchell this year, right? Donovan Mitchell's a young player.
Do you think the Suns can win it all?
No.
I don't think they can win it all.
I
No.
I think if they
winning it all.
We're not saying that. They don't have to win it all for Booker's prices to go crazy.
Exactly.
I mean,
last year in the bubble, prices went crazy.
I mean, Chris Paul's prices already went up a significant amount. Before the playoffs. Yeah, I think they were.
Yeah, Booker just needs to show promise and level up as a player, and I think and show up in big moments, and that's it.
Yeah, I mean, Chris Paul doubled, I think, within the last few months, and now they're second seed, and then once they go into playoffs, as long as they can show some sort of potential, I think, or that they're going to go far, as long as they don't get disappointed or upset, I think if they show some sort of strong performance,
Devin Booker, if they get into the second round, all of a sudden you have a lot more eyes on them.
And then
and if they, last year in the bubble, we saw Booker's prisms go crazy after a game winner. They didn't even make the playoffs, right? And then another thing is, I mean, in general, you have this whole sense of, who's next, who's going to, just in general, a lot of demand around a lot of these young guys. And for as young as Booker is, if he has one big game winner, like Luka in the, playoffs last year, he hit that big game winner. His prism went from 1,200 to 2,000 just because, everyone's, thought process is if he hit this game winner, if he's clutch, if he's showing up now, I can only imagine him 3, 4, 5 years from now. And that's what really separates, that's what separated LeBron and Kobe and allowed them to reach that next level. And why they'll be remembered, because they showed up in the playoffs. They show up in the playoffs. They can lead a team. And with Donovan Mitchell, currently leading the Jazz, the #1 seed in the West, Booker, of course, obviously he has Chris Paul as well, but regardless, those two are leading the Suns to the #3 seed right now. These are the young stars that I personally am willing to bet on. I'm personally not a big modern fan per se. I did see a lot of opportunity in March because we saw, before LeBron's prices even started to go crazy, we saw Luka at 500 when Jokic and guys of that caliber were $30, literally.
So who are your top? Let's keep it simple. Who are your top 5 modern players, 1 to 5?
Top 5 modern players in terms of prices, right? So current prices,
opportunity to
opportunity, Best Buy.
I would say Booker for sure. Booker, I would say to stay away from his prism though, just because his prism is a little bit higher. It's a lot higher than a lot of his RPAs, or his collegiate RPAs, and some other cards of that nature, which I don't quite understand. I think Booker's high-end market has a lot of room for growth still. So that's one place I see a lot of opportunity. Donovan Mitchell, just because the Jazz are already winning, he can put up those explosive performances, get a lot of short-term growth. And I think, if he's already winning at this age, long-term, he's going to figure it out if he has teammates around him. I think Donovan Mitchell for sure. I mean, I personally am a very big believer in Luka. I just think with his prices, there's no upside long-term. I personally think if there's one guy in the NBA that's going to end up being the next LeBron, the next Jordan, the next Kobe, it's going to be Luka. That's personally how I feel.
Yeah, I don't see it happening. I mean, I think it's he's the one that has the best chance out of everybody, but I don't see it. I don't see it because there's one component about Luka's game that, I will say that he doesn't have that Jordan, Kobe, and LeBron had, and that's explosiveness. He's a great player. I'm not going to say that he's not a great player. He reminds me of almost like Paul Pierce in the sense that he doesn't seem that fast, right? But he always gets his shot off. He has great finesse. He has great court vision. He always knows what to do. But I would not describe him as explosive. You have to think about think about when let's just go back in time. Think about when LeBron James came into the league, or even before that when he was in high school. Do you remember the footage of how high the man jumped? Do you remember how the athletic phenomenon that was LeBron James?
I do think
remember
also.
No, I mean, like, think about that. Just think about it. Think about when
but
Jordan,
at the same point, like the fact that Luka's been able to figure that out when he's getting double teams thrown at him, he's been able to manage it. You know, he literally nearly without Porzingis took the Clippers 7 games. You know, that 6th game was very close. So
Paul Pierce was really good at that too, and you know, I mean, he had that same style of game, and Paul Pierce was really dominant and really, really good. And so there was a lot of
play alongside like 3 other stars, right?
Right,
I just think
that,
Luka,
even before that though, he was pretty good. I mean,
I personally don't think he was ever really on Luka's level
not from the level of popularity.
I know,
but I just see him as similar style players, you know, in a lot of ways.
I mean, I just think Luka's, first of all, passing ability, his, you know, in general, a lot of that Paul Pierce didn't have, right? Like ability to lead a team.
He definitely didn't have that. I'm just saying his offensive, the way that Paul Pierce scored was that he did it almost nonchalantly in a way that like he didn't rely on his athleticism. You know, he relied on his ability and his skill level in the game to know when to pump fake, when to pivot, you know, how to find his shot. And he always did. And Luka does too. Luka's really great at that. And Luka's a much better shooter than Paul Pierce, much better shooter than a lot of these guys. But, you know,
Paul Pierce definitely had like a unique style about him.
He had a unique style. I'm just saying, I'm not saying they're the same player. I'm saying that they have a similar style. I would not put Kobe, like, I'm just trying to explain something to you that, like, LeBron James was a generational athlete, and so was Kobe Bryant. Kobe Bryant was one of the best high school players to ever play in the history of the world, and he was explosive. I mean, explosive. If you want to see people just dunk all over everybody, you can Google 90s highlights of Kobe. Like, he won the slam dunk, right? I mean, obviously, but mainly he was just posterizing people. His athleticism was insane. Jordan jumped from the free throw line. We all know what Jordan's athleticism was compared to people before.
Yeah.
What I'm getting at is that I don't think that Luka has that piece going for him as much as those guys did. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, you're not going to see Luka, you know, reverse windmill dunk or anything like that. I think that's just the point he's trying to make, is that all these guys have these super athletic, explosive, just, you know, crazy. Like, Luka's not going to dunk from the free throw line or something close like that.
You see how, you know, Giannis and Steph entered the league like scrawny, skinny.
No,
right?
that's true.
Like, at the
but I mean,
Luka has, if that's his one place where he has to improve, he could,
but
over 3
off that are God
he
given.
could become an explosive.
Yeah, you know, he could, but I just don't. Most players are their most explosive when they're at their youngest age because they have the most vertical, the most spring, you know. And then as they get older, they have to change their game and evolve. I mean, even Michael Jordan, you know, he had to go and find that the fadeaway, the short range fadeaway.
Right?
Yeah, and like LeBron, and Kobe too. Kobe developed his fadeaway just like MJ, and worked on his shooting. Developed his 3-point shot, incredible. And you know, I mean, he didn't have a stamina for those types of things or an aptitude for them to the level that he did after a year like 3, 4, 5 in the league. When he first came in the league, those guys rely on athleticism heavily. You know, I don't care if you're T-Mac or Kobe or Jordan or LeBron. I mean, all those guys were world-class athletes, not, you know, on a scale of like that you may, the top 1% of the top 1%, athletically given, God-given talent. And you know, there's talent that you can develop on a basketball court. There's hand-eye coordination that's natural. There's the ability to court vision and all those things that Luka has, but he doesn't have that piece. He'll never have that piece, in my opinion. You'll never see Luka doing those things that those guys did. And you know, what I'm getting at is
prices are falling. The prices are going to fall of Luka, man. We should change.
Well, I don't know. I don't know that because
his pop is pretty high too.
I'm saying Kunal's point about Luka being the most one of the most fun players in the league to watch is true. I'm not saying he's not electric. I'm just saying that he doesn't have that component that those other 3 guys mentioned have, and that doesn't mean that he can't.
I want to see more. I want to see more before.
Yeah.
You
know. I mean, here's the thing about when you look at LeBron James. I mean, LeBron James, his physical acumen, his physical stature, his physical athleticism, his size,
His genetics.
it's genetics, and it's also partly what makes him unstoppable. Like, he's not he in his prime, he was not stoppable. Jordan, to some degree, given the level of players that he was playing against, had the same type of abilities. Given his speed, his vertical, his ability with hand-eye coordination to react quickly on a defensive and offensive level, he was at such a high level that it made him kind of impossible to stop.
I mean, my point is, right, I just don't think there's enough of a sample size to be able to say if someone's not athletic, they're not going to reach that point, because we've only seen three guys reach that level that we're talking about, right? Kobe, MJ, LeBron, and those three guys are very small sample size. Luka could pave his own way and create a new level of people who are super good at body movement, very good angles, got everything nailed down, and can do it their own way, right? So that's personally right. I'm not saying Luka's gonna reach that level, but I'm saying is, he does definitely, in my eyes, have the potential to.
Absolutely. I'm not saying it's not possibility. I'm saying that as a futures bet, to me, it seems a little bit like the odds are like you're what you're paying up front to at the possibility. It's pretty high. I do think, though, that Curry was an example of what you're talking about, like someone coming in and doing things in a way that we couldn't see before, and like literally change the game. So, Curry's an example of kind of like how somebody new can come in, do things in a different way, and still kind of have a place in their place in NBA history.
Yeah. I mean, 100%. Even like someone like Magic Johnson, right, wasn't incredibly athletic, wasn't the
Bird was the best example. Bird was not at all athletic.
Yeah, Bird too.
Yeah.
I mean,
but I think the one thing about
the cards, right? For opportunities, do you three have like your own picks of young guys? I know for me personally, what I'm looking for in a young guy is ability to win, ability to figure things out. The team around them, the organization around them, like the Spurs. I love to invest in young Spurs guys. I think DeJounte Murray is going to be great just because the Spurs, player development has been like, Duncan, Ginobili, Parker, Kawhi. These were all like average players who they turned into, the best of their potential, turned into stars. So that's personally what I really look for, and that's why I love Devin Booker. He's just, with the worst team around him, he's been able to find ways to, pave his way. And then obviously Donovan Mitchell has just been able to lead his team, and I love that in a young star. But any kind of young stars you guys believe in?
Not like a young star, but I was gonna say Kawhi's been overlooked in my opinion. I mean, me and Kunal bought a good bit of Kawhi's recently just because his prices stayed about the same since they lost.
Yeah, it's pretty.
It's pretty
disrespectful to Kawhi's legacy that he gets. Yeah. I mean, he doesn't have his cards don't really have any multiple. I mean, his RPA really hasn't done much compared to the market at all, and his his cards in general. But a lot of that again goes back to
that could be because
personality.
He's not the most likable personality, right?
I mean, I tell people this all the time. Like, don't get too lost in cards and the numbers and achievements, okay? Because we know from history, use history as a judgment for the future. We know from history that achievements and numbers don't equate to value. Okay, we can use the most extreme example of Mickey Mantle. He's not close to being the best baseball player of all time. It's not even a question. Probably not even in the top 5.
Wagner.
And yet, his card prices are the most expensive in the hobby. Like in terms of overall, value, just card values in general, right? It's charisma, likability, iconicness. How important you were to an era is very important. How you represented your era. And you look at baseball again. I mean, Barry Bonds again, one of the most. You guys are in the Bay Area. He's on paper. On paper, he's one of the greatest. Maybe got to be statistically the greatest, if not one of the greatest baseball players to ever live. I mean, it's not even a question. I mean, granted, there's steroids, etc., associated with him. He has a taboo, not as likable. But I mean, there's other guys that played in the same era, right, that are extremely collectible that didn't have the numbers. Ken Griffey Jr.
Who do you connect with? Like, what's your, like, out of any basketball player, who's the guy that you connect with the most?
Modern players?
just in general.
Yeah, I guess sticking on the modern topic, like who do you believe in? I know you
Yeah,
personally
I mean,
stick to
the question about value though, like who do I feel like is a good buy, or who do I think is going to emerge to be the guy
No,
that carries?
I was just trying to prove the point that maybe the person you connect to is not like,
I mean,
maybe hasn't won the most, or maybe because I connect with Allen Iverson like the most out of any player, just because I kind of grew up in his era and he was just electrifying. He didn't really do that much, but I connected with him the most.
I mean,
that's why his prices
are
like 2x Duncan, right?
Yeah, I'll say this.
Well, that's kind of the point I was trying to make. But go ahead.
I mean, like for example, like Kyrie's like one of the best players in the league, probably the best, maybe the best point guard in the league, or one of the best point guards in the league. I mean, he has crazy talent, right? His card prices don't really reflect that because I think his personality is polarizing, and I think that factors in. I think charisma matters. Like there's guys that we know from the past that just had a ton of charisma, and then that's why their prices are where they are. And I think that Kawhi is sort of the subject of that, and I think that when you look at younger guys in the league, you have to kind of factor in like how much are people really going to connect with this player, because again, we're collecting a collectible, right? We're buying collectibles, and people that want to hold a collectible long term usually want to have some kind of an attachment to the athlete. They want to own some piece of the athlete, some have some type of representation in their collection of that player. And I think that why would you want to do that if a player is not really, really, truly someone that people are attracted to or that they gravitate towards, and they don't have a lot of heart for? There's a metric we never talk about in cards, and it's heart. People say, is Kobe the best of all time? Is he should deserve to be in the top 5? I don't know, but I do know this: Kobe is loved. He's loved before he passed away, and he's loved after he was passed away, because the way he played the game. It's not all about the numbers, and so that factors into
played in a bunch of that all plays, into factor, right? Kobe played in LA, a huge market. Even Patrick Ewing, right, got so much attention for being in New York City. Just a lot of that plays in. I think that's personally why I initially had a thought like Giannis could, of course, he doesn't quite have the jump shot and whatever, but I thought, he could really be the next guy if he just developed his jump shot. But in Milwaukee, it's a little, even if he turns out to be that guy, will he ever get the recognition that these guys did? It's very rare, right? You saw it in LeBron, who turned Cleveland into a bigger market and was able to overcome that barrier. But in general, it is very tough, especially talking sports cards, to be in Milwaukee and to get that type of recognition. And Giannis has been able to. I mean, I'll give him a lot of props. He's been able to, make his own name in Milwaukee. But at the same token, right? Like, I mean, how big can he get in Milwaukee?
It's tough.
Well,
there's never been a player.
What's crazy is I know people that aren't even basketball fans that connect with Kobe in a huge way, and it's mainly because of his work ethic. They try to take what he believed in into what they do.
I was gonna
say,
it's
basically like what he stood for. It has nothing to do with even what he did on the court.
Yeah, I mean, like I got right here, like this book right here. This is Kobe Bryant's like book, right, about the Mamba mentality, right? Like this book, like people, Kobe actually created a marketing agency like before he died for 5 years. It's like one of the reasons he won the Academy Award. He produced a lot of content. His whole mission in life was to take the way he played basketball and try to push that out to people, that they could use that to apply to be good in other areas. He had a bigger vision for the way he approached the game that other people could learn and take from to their whole life.
Exactly.
So it was about how you're going to live your life that mattered. So that's a big deal, because he was trying to impact the world in how they approached their lives. Not just play the game at a high level and win championships. He was trying to send a message to people, and I think that, like, you talk about the cultural impact of someone like that versus comparing him to guys that are just playing a game at a certain point and they have a lot of promise. Man, like, you're talking about, like, you're comparing apples and oranges. To climb the mountain that these guys climbed, dude, it is a big mountain. I'm talking about Everest, Kilimanjaro. This is not some this isn't some little tiny little mountain in Boulder or something like that.
Yeah,
like,
I don't know if somebody's going to make an impact like Kobe did. I mean, it's not even basketball fans that he resonates with. It's insane, actually, if you really think about it.
I was gonna say
there's
that.
A great video.
No, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna
say
there's
a great.
I want to hear Ohm. Let's hear Ohm talk.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, you know how Kunal was talking about markets and how bigger markets gravitate, or it equals more fans and things. I think now these basketball players have these personal brands that people, you don't even have to live there to be attached to them.
Absolutely.
Like,
100%.
Yeah, like they always, show off on Instagram or have these interviews or collab with people. And I think now that's a bigger factor too. Like everybody rocks with Giannis or Trae Young or Devin Booker.
Yeah.
I mean,
and people are less loyal to collecting wise to where they live. Like it's not like, oh, I live in Houston, so I'm going to collect Rockets players. Nobody really does that. That you collect who they gravitate towards. I mean, the players move around like musical chairs anyway. So what difference does it make? You can't get married to a team.
Yeah. Nowadays that's hard. Honestly, like your star of your team who you've watched for 5-6 years gravitated towards could all of a sudden be on the next team, just request a trade at any given moment. But I also think on that token, like I see a lot of opportunity in guys like Shaq. And I know
Shaq is one of my number one.
Yeah. I think long term he's one of the best investments because your mom would know who Shaq is, right? If you know 3 basketball players, chances are, or 4 basketball players, it's probably MJ, LeBron, Kobe, and then Shaq's like the guy. TV personality, always staying relevant.
I'll say one more thing about Shaq too, just to note. One of the reasons that Wilt Chamberlain's values are so high is how mythical Wilt Chamberlain was. Wilt Chamberlain was like a mythical character. Shaq will go down in history as one of the most mythical characters in the history of the game by far. There's never, ever, ever going to be a player in basketball that's ever going to rip down backboards ever again like Shaq did. This the physical force. You're not gonna see it.
So I have a question. I have a question, guys, for like new people coming into this in this space. Originally this was like more of a hobby, and people collected what they liked, and now you're talking about how Shaq is a good investment piece. Now, should people be entering this market assuming that they're going to make money here, or should this be more of like
with the dollar amounts that you have to spend, you have to take the financial consideration into play. It's just the same as art, okay? Yeah. Art prices in the 40, 50 years ago were very affordable. Actually, a doctor or a normal business person could go buy really nice Picasso pieces, 50 years, like really, really like $100 million pieces today. Someone that they could spend about a year's worth of rent or half a year's rent and buy a really nice piece of art, like a world-class piece of art today, okay? But that's not the case anymore. But you don't hear people crying in the streets saying, oh, it's not fair, I can't buy Picassos. No, they'll just have to find some other piece of art that they do identify with and they like, and they can just buy, and they can find art they can afford. There's a ton of art, and same thing with cards.
Yeah. I mean, but also you have right now a lot of fractional ownership places coming on that may turn a lot of attention away from LeBron's 20th best card, and a lot of that attention gets shifted into a share of his most coveted Topps Chrome, right? So that's a place that I really see the market going right now. And I think a lot of the lower end, a lot of the cheap stuff right now that people are investing in, they're going to take that money and go into if they break a
I mean I always tell people like 99.999 to the infinite power, or whatever you want to call it, to the infinite 9 is of cards made or junk. Of every card ever produced is junk, is absolute trash. 99.999999999 is trash, garbage. Like literally, it's garbage. Like you could leave it for free at a show in a giant bag, and it's garbage. Burbank Sport Card has 800 million cards, whatever the hell it is. Like most of the stuff in the back, those raws, like they're never going to be worth anything.
Do you guys ever have guys come to you that and they're like, dude, I got so many cards like in my garage, and I'm just like, honestly, man,
I get so many
you
DMs,
probably don't have anything worth anything, but I'll take a look.
Well, like it's you never know. It's the fun of the treasure hunt and stuff, and that's cool. But like my point, I was going back to the art, is that 99.99999 to the infinite 9 that you can think of all art ever produced is not worth anything. Okay, art art is very, very, like, I want to put that in perspective.
Yeah,
Art is extremely common.
But it can be worth something to you, like, you know,
Exactly.
just because it doesn't,
And so
you know, that's the whole point.
So that's when people tell me
that
that,
piece
like,
of art could be worth nothing, but to me, I like it. I enjoy
right. And there's
Mm-hmm.
always going to be emerging artists. No matter how expensive art comes, there's always going to be someone else come along that's not expensive because no one knows who the hell they are, and that becomes expensive. Like, and you can invest in it if you know what you're doing, right? So why can't cards be the same thing? Why can't cards be the same thing? Like, I hear what you're saying. Like, when people come in, is it a collectible, is it an investment? It can be both. Like, you can
like
enjoy
someone coming to the market with, let's say, under $10,000. They're just they're just new, and they just kind of want to get a feel for it. What would you tell them? I mean, what are you going to tell them?
Well, I would say spread it out between maybe buying, like, it depends on what they like. First of all, I wouldn't tell them to buy things they don't like, because they need to enjoy the hobby. Like, you need to enjoy it. So I would kind of figure out what they like, what era they like, and start there. But I would probably tell them to buy, like, some fundamental pieces that are probably safe, like relatively safe, because they make sense. And after you learn the macros of the market, and after you learn some of the fundamentals, and I would tell them, with, like, some of their money, to, like, actually, like, try to speculate a little bit for fun, and buy things that they really just think are unique, or that they just like to own, and kind of enjoy it. Like, the same thing if someone told me, like, hey, I want to spend $10,000 on art, I would say, okay, like, well, you want to make sure that you don't lose money. You just want to buy stuff you like. I mean, there's all kinds of questions that you have to ask somebody. You know, if somebody says, well, I really don't want to lose my 10,000, but I want to invest in this. Well, then you're investing for it to invest. You know, like, you're not doing it for the enjoyment. So
see, I also think there's a whole nother aspect, because it's like a community thing, this whole space, and you can learn a lot of things, and you're going to meet really good people, and there's going to be more that you get out of this. And that's what I would tell, like, someone new coming in. There's more that you're going to get out of this than just buying.
But if somebody, like, I have friends of mine that are doctors, and they're busy, and they just want to invest because they think it's a cool alternative asset. They don't care at all about any of that. They're busy family people, but they would like to put some money in it. So those types of people would be great just buying a fractional, like, into cards, or putting their money in something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember when Star Stock first came out with, like, the whole idea of you're buying a digital kind of card. It's essentially crypto, right? At that point, I mean, you own the card, but you're never going to see the card in person. And at first, they had so much backlash. Like, what are you guys doing? This takes away from the whole collecting aspect. Why would I buy a card that I'm not going to have in person? But you see what NBA Top Shot's done, right? I mean, clearly Star Stock has been very successful. And that a lot of the ideas are really shifting. A lot of big hedge fund guys, they're just putting money into the market. They're not looking to, they may not even, have collected as a kid. They may not even have attachment to any of these, assets.
Yeah.
Right. They look at them as assets, and assets specifically. And, the more liquid, the better. And of course, with fractional ownership, super liquid, right? If they can get to a certain point where it's like an IPO of a company, right? Like, you can buy and sell Tesla shares like this. What about, what if down the line, a LeBron?
So I'm not that well informed on fractional ownership. Can you sell your pieces, like, instantly?
On some platforms.
Or how does that work?
Okay. The way I think Dibs is the secondary marketplace.
I think Dibs is trying to make it instant.
Yeah, that'd be pretty cool. I think if you could get your money back, like, instantly.
Normally, when you fractionalize something, it has to go to the SEC. It takes 4 to 6 weeks for them to approve it and securitize it as an asset, and then they can allocate shares in it.
The thing with Dibs, I think they actually buy a card, and it's backed up by that card, as opposed to something,
Well,
that's what all of them do, actually.
I want to say something about NFTs. I want to be clear that one of the things that NFTs will never be able to do is go back in time to 1996 and issue something as Kobe's first year in the league. They're never going to be able to go back to 1986 or 1984 and issue Jordan's first, rookie card. They're never going to go back in time and be able to do those things. And so what I'm getting back to the point about cards being historical documents is that they're like antiques. They represent a point in time that something happened. And that's important. You can't remanufacture that. You can't go back in time unless you have Marty McFly with you 35 years and release something. Okay. So that's what makes rookie cards special. They're the first release of something at that point in time to mark a point in history. And also, to your point, Kunal, is that you can't be nostalgic if you haven't been dreaming of owning it since that time that it came out, right? Or remember it, right, from that time as a child or in the past. So, I want to put that in perspective. You can't remanufacture that. The reason that retro Jordans are so popular, think about that, was the designs were amazing. They were really cool. They took the world by storm, much like a lot of the Topps Chrome card did with Kobe, or an 86 Fleer with the image on that, right? But they also, they're nostalgic. Retro Jordans are nostalgic. People like buying them because it reminds them of, oh, I remember in 96 when those came out, man, I wanted them so bad and I couldn't get them, or I had them and I rocked them at school, and everybody was they're nostalgic. Think about that. Think about that for a second.
I definitely get that part. I do also think that there's a lot of opportunity in this new wave, a lot of people who are just throwing big money in these billions.
Hey,
right?
There's going to be a lot of people.
They may, right? A lot of
people are going to
be in the market for the money in the coming decade, considering it's on CNBC, right? Sports cards are on CNBC saying, "Oh my God, the cards are this much." There's a lot of new people coming in, just like, "Oh, this is a great place to make money. Where do I put my money to best work itself?" And a lot of those folks may not want, even to own the card and have to deal with posting it up on eBay. They may just want to buy a share like you do on TD Ameritrade and just sell it right back.
Listen, guys, people do this with art. They've been fractionalizing art for a long, long time. It's not any different. It's like the same thing. I don't understand why we have to guess what's going to happen with collectibles when we can look at other collectible markets and we have a story that it shows there. Why are sports cards going to be any different from any other collectible market? It's not. It's a collectible. And that's why when people talk about the sports card market, it's so high. Well, in relation to sports cards, what the sports card market used to be, it's high. But in relation to other collectible, to other collectible markets, it's about where it should be, or if not, it's undervalued, given that it's more relevant to more people.
Yeah. That. Yeah. And I was also gonna say a big thing people buy these cards for is status too. And people, I think, will pay a premium for status because, people buy yachts, cars, houses, all for status, right?
Everyone kind of has,
And this is 100%. One of the few status things that should retain its value or even go up, right? As opposed to a car,
I would think so,
house, yacht.
I would think so because I think Instagram and social media help change a lot of that. For cards' favor, because it shows it allows a platform for people to sort of show off their cards, right?
Yeah.
Where it's with art, it's you hang it on your wall, but no one really takes pictures of their art and shows it off really as much on social media. Maybe they do, but I don't.
Maybe it's to their friends, right? Or their other other wealthy people or something.
Their homes, right? They'll put it up. A lot of that is right. If you get into a new home, you want to buy a painting to put up. Right?
Yeah, but you can't take your painting and put it in your pocket and go to a show and show it to a bunch of people, or bring it. You can't do that.
I get what you're saying. But I definitely think shows are, especially when COVID's done, right? Shows are an incredible way for a lot of new people to be introduced into the market. 100%, because
that's the community element.
Yeah.
I
would recommend going to a show for somebody new.
Yeah. If you're just a friend of someone going to the show and you're like, yo, what are you going to? Oh, it's a sports card show. Oh, the hotels are booked out. There's 5,000 people in there, the convention center. It's going to get a lot of, attention. And especially the National this year is going to be, in my opinion, I don't think my mind can fathom how many people are going to show up, one, and two, just the atmosphere, right? People outside of sports cards can walk into that thing and be like, this is all for sports cards, right? What am I walking into? Everyone going crazy for this. So that aspect, I think, is really going to shift things. And then also just media, right? Overall on social media, you can reach, globally. And I think a lot of these platforms that currently, MySlabs, for example, that comes up and is only allowing U.S. buyers and sellers, that is a little bit concerning for me. I think a lot of these marketplaces that succeed are going to be able to reach different demographics globally. Because as sports cards grow globally, these guys can't buy on certain marketplaces. eBay import fees can be, very tough, taxes, all different kinds of things. So if some fractional ownership can, break down that barrier, and all of a sudden now everyone can just buy into a card, I think that could be huge. I personally am a very big, I'm a very big believer in fractional ownership, in the future of the sports card market, having, I would say more than art, right? Because art is, it is obviously an investable market for many people, but, at the end of the day, people love to just put up their paintings. And that is more so what I look at art. Maybe I'm not as educated in art, but for sports cards, a lot of these new investors are loving star stock, are loving are loving collectible, are loving dibs, and
I believe in that, but I also think that there's just something to be said about actually having the card,
or like even owning
100% there is.
Even owning 100%
connecting with it, So,
but if you have $100 and you're going in for a LeBron 2019 Prism that's going to hold no long-term value, wouldn't you rather put that $100 towards a share of a Topps Chrome?
Yeah, for sure.
Whatever.
For sure,
absolutely.
For sure.
Like it's a way for people to run up their money so they can actually afford to buy a whole card on their own.
Yeah.
Like
100%.
I think.
No, I think it has its own place for it. But I think with like art and other things like that, people have that satisfaction of knowing I own 100% of this piece, or I own this piece. Like you can print out.
A lot of people get a lot of people feel like satisfaction over owning some of Apple stock. Like I own Apple. I believe in that company. Like I know it's a good company. I picked a solid company, and I'm a believer, and so I'm gonna put a little bit of my money towards that belief. You could kind of apply that to a card. Like I believe that the Jordan rookie card will be $1 million someday, and I want to get
people buying NFTs right now.
Huh?
You're not gonna hang that over.
No, I think that's for your virtual house. When you display it at your virtual house, I think that's what the purpose of that is.
No, but NFT, like you could, I guess like with art as an NFT, you can take it and you can throw it on your wall. Like if you had an LCD or like some type of display, you could put it up.
Yeah.
Well,
but as for like somebody who has $100 who doesn't want to invest in some modern garbage, really, as Chase said earlier, I guess it would be smart just to put that in a Topps Chrome. I think I cut out.
Yeah, like if the card goes 2-3x, now you have $300. Now you take that and you go put it in something else. You make 900. You do that. Maybe you do it again, and maybe you have a couple grand.
Build up until you can actually buy the full thing. But a lot of these people and a lot of these, the masses, right, who's really driving the market. Of course, they're big investors driving the market. There's also masses, but at the same time, even big investors, are they too worried about having the card in hand? I mean, certainly some are, but a lot also, I would argue, are not.
No,
I've talked to a
not.
lot of,
they're not.
Big investors, guys, who are just like, yo, if you tell me this is, gonna stay for the long term, if you tell me I can invest in this, I will, right? And I'll throw my big money in there, and that's gonna drive up the market. And those guys may not want that, right? They may want to just.
But those guys are strictly just trying to doing this as an investment. There's some people that it's an investment, but they also have a connection to this stuff and they enjoy it as well. So,
but if sports cards really continue to grow, there's going to be less and less collectors, in my opinion. More and more investors.
There's some truth to that for sure.
That's how I personally think. If it reaches the masses, a lot of people, who knows, may not.
Yeah, I mean, like that's what happened with art market. I mean, when the art market basically blew up, it all became institutional money, and now most of the art in the world, the big art, is owned by institutions, not even really people anymore. Like insurance companies, really wealthy estates.
I could see that happening with sports cards too. I really can.
Yeah. So
I wanted to end off on a little kind of like, advice for, I guess I would say beginners / just in general, one mistake that you guys see people make. And I kind of wanted to start off and say, for me personally, observing a lot of people having, of course, my membership program, a lot of people who are buying and selling in the market. I personally see a great mistake being made that people are only buying on eBay. And people look at eBay as the only place to buy and sell. And firstly, My Slabs has 1% seller fees. Selling on Facebook and privately has no seller fees, right? So this inclines sellers, right? If you're buying cards, right? A lot of people are paying top dollar eBay prices. However, if you're buying on My Slabs, if you're buying privately, people are often willing to take, 10, 15% under market price on eBay because they're able to save on those fees. So when buying personally, I see a lot of people just overpaying, especially when you get into the higher end stuff, right? If you're buying on eBay, chances are you can find that same seller. Of course, it does, there are exceptions if it's a very rare card and everything. But if you're going out and buying a LeBron, Topps Chrome on eBay, chances are you could hop on Facebook groups, My Slabs, and get it for 10%, 15% cheaper. So yeah, if you guys want to share kind of one mistake, if you guys have any that you see a lot of newer investors make.
So for me, I was just gonna say, I mean, I've made this mistake many times, so I guess I'm speaking from experience too. But I was gonna say when people are buying things that they want to flip, let's say, they don't sell when it's time to sell, and then they just get stuck, holding the bag, and they kind of have to wait it out or have to sell at a loss. Let's just say so. Like for example, I've done that
a
with
lot of people are,
with me and Kunal bought a Nike promo card, and
we didn't time that right.
There was a time to sell it, and we wanted a little bit more because we thought that's what the market should have been, but we didn't end up getting that, and now we're kind of stuck with that card until its next cycle, right? So I guess that's one mistake. Just don't get too greedy and just sell, when you're up a good
from
bunch.
Definitely a quick flipper's perspective, the best way you see Sasha T, who's built up 15K to nearly $1 million, right, in the last a year and a half, 2 years, and that's because it's just flipping, right? You're finding the next card that's going to do that. You're not holding on to it and hoping it's going to do an extra 20%, an extra 30% because it's on fire. You're looking to find that next card that's going to have that big gain.
Yeah, that's why I think going to the shows is important because you kind of get a feel for the market.
Get a feel for the demand. Facebook groups well. Right? It's a great place to get a feel for demand, where people's heads are at. So at the end of the day, it's just consumer behavior. People want something, price is going to go up on that card. People, predict that a card's going to go up. Chances are if enough people predict it's going to go up, it's going to go up just from the prediction because all those predictors are going to buy it, and that's what drives the market. And it's really interesting on the lower supply cards because prices can go absolutely crazy, as we've seen. Even with the Jordan 86 Fleer, how many people want that card? Well, there are only 314 copies. How many are willing to sell? And that number is going to continue to decline. So that's definitely a thing. But back to Ohm's point, just like if you're getting that number, just if you see a card has gone up to a point and you could see, it's also opportunity cost, right? By holding that and hoping for an extra 20%, even if it does that extra 20%, you could have put that money into another card that could have, done better. And we really saw that, especially with like MJ's Fleer, right? As soon as that hit that $738,000, sale, everyone, instead of looking for that MJ Fleer and trying to say, oh, well, what if the next sale's $1 million? You could have gone to LeBron and made 3x in a month, because that's where the market turned to next. And then after LeBron went up 3x, instead of holding that, you could have gone into KD because KD was 4,000 in a PSA 10 for his Topps Chrome, and that did 3x. And now, Harden's, a bunch of other cards are just going to, kind of be rebounds from this. And that's really just about finding that, the next place the market's going to look to, the next place that people feel, is undervalued. So
do your research, talk to people. I mean, the mistakes I made was kind of maybe just like impulse buying, like maybe just buying something out of impulse without doing my homework on it. So that's some advice that I would give for sure.
Especially when entering the market, that's like
you just kind of see something
that a lot
and
of people fall into.
I mean, I would say before you buy anything, just like research a bunch, like watch videos or just kind of see what's happening, and then
get different opinions. Yeah.
Well, there's different versions of cards, so like someone could be like, oh, that's so cheap, and they're buying something that's not even what they what they think they're buying, just because it looks the same.
People buying Derek Jeter SPs recently, thinking they're SP foils.
Yeah, so just definitely do your research. You could make some costly mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean 100%. It's really all just consumer behavior. Being able to, I feel like the more people you talk to, really the better decisions you're gonna make. And I know it's not following what they're telling you, but it's getting into their minds and seeing, they're another investor in this market, and where they throw their markets, chances are a lot of people may be thinking the same way. And that really shifts the market. We had this whole stigma around centers in the NBA back in April, back in March, practically before March. There was absolutely no value in a center because they weren't fun to watch. Like a Karl Anthony Towns Prism was $25 in a PSA 10 when Luka was $500. And of course, that didn't make much sense, but the whole explanation was, oh, it's centers. Eventually, you know, prices reached a crazy point and people saw opportunities in centers and power forwards, and then their prices started to rise. So a lot of it is really just, you know, one, research, two, figuring out where people are going, getting into the heads of these investors, because things do change in the market. We saw in PSA and BGS. Now PSA is holding a crazy premium over BGS. When I came into the market, BGS 9.5s were more expensive than PSA 10s. So the market's definitely going to shift as more people get in. Really try to, you know, I wouldn't say follow the crowd, but understand where the crowd is, and, you know, be able to kind of predict where the crowd's going next. Is, you know, that's where you can see the biggest returns really in this investment or in this market.
All right.
Yeah.
Chase.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
Right. Yeah.
Any last words, Chase?
Oh yeah. For new collectors coming into the hobby, I think that, like, you know, Gary Vee always talks about putting 40 hours in. Like, he's kind of a hobby guy too, but also just in general, that comes to mind. Like, I think you need to put your time in, understand the fundamentals. You know, like to Kunal's point, they change over time. And so you need to kind of be up to date with what the current fundamentals of the markets are. Have an understanding of like what your strategy is going to be. Like when you go to a market or even go to a show, like whenever you kind of are planning on spending money, you know, you need to make sure you know what exactly is your strategy, what's your vision, what's your game plan, and you can change that and adjust it like as the market changes, and as maybe you're, you know, you may evolve as a collector and you're as an investor, and you may change, but you need to at least kind of put the work in, come up with a strategy that kind of fits what you're trying to do, because you can't do everything. And I think one of the things I tell a lot of people is try to focus on I don't know, for me, what helps, and some people don't do this, but for me, just focusing on one sport, you know, become an expert on one sport, on one area of the market. If you're too spread out all over the place, you're trying to follow everything. The markets are so different. Like, you know, the way that baseball chrome parallels trade, for example, different color variants are different from basketball. And, you know, there's just a lot of current events that you have to follow and trends within the markets. And it's a lot if you're doing multiple sports. And so you can do it if it helps you, keeps you entertained and whatever. But I just would be cautious to like understand that each one of these markets in and of itself, there's a lot of things to keep up with. And so I try to like narrow your focus so that you can really become like good at one area before you expand to every area.
Solid.
100%.
But it's been an hour and a half. I think we've had pretty good conversation for anyone who's watching.
Very good first episode discussion, I'm sure. You know,
yeah,
I just hope so.
Yeah, we want to thank everybody for watching. We want to thank Chase and Jerry for their time and just dropping a lot of advice for us. But
we're glad to be here.
Yeah, so
looking forward to do it again.
Really happy to be invited and really appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
And
100%.
For sure. But
Thank you guys so much. We'll close it out. If you guys ever,
all right, we're out.
So I guess we can close out the video now. So if you guys ever want to hop back on, always feel free to reach out. But thank you guys so much for doing this.
Yes.
Yeah, no worries.
I'll leave all their socials in the description and everything. But
yeah.
thank you guys, and there we go.
All right.